Powered by GoGoat Sports and in partnership with TSN, this is Season 3. It is episode 32 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. We've got Dallas Eakins of the Anaheim Ducks, head coach of the Ducks, joining us in episode 32. He'll be along a little bit later. Ray, I recognize that office. You're actually home. You're in Vancouver. So planes, trains, and automobiles, at least for this week,
yeah,
just about behind you.
Well, so I had 3 games in 3 nights to start. But so I started in Raleigh, Boston, then Rangers, Pittsburgh, then back to Raleigh for Raleigh, Boston, for Carolina, Boston. And, but since the Rangers decided to play 2 games in the first day, it turned out to be 4 games, 3 days, 5 flights. And so home for a few days and looking forward to it. Gonna get out and hit the golf ball around a little bit on the range and spend some time and then right back out next week.
Okay, just quickly take us to that triple overtime game.
Yeah.
All right. Rangers and the Penguins. Evgeny Malkin scores the third overtime winner. The players talk about what they're doing. They're hydrating. You know, they're getting a quick meal in them. In Louis Domingue's case, spicy pork and broccoli, not a great idea. Right. We understand that. But what are you doing? You're between the benches, man. You're grinding it out. There's 2 games in 1 being played. I mean, yeah, you're probably having a coffee and as much water as you can jam in you, but are you doing protein bars? Like,
no, you know what? I didn't, and that was a little bit of a mistake. I wasn't prepared. If it would have been the regular season, I would have just leaned around the glass and said to the trainer, hey, can you pitch me a protein bar? But I didn't want to bug them during, it's amazing. Like the trainers, the stick guys, everybody's so tense. They don't need me asking for a protein bar. So between periods, I did 2 things, water and didn't talk because I'm always worried about losing my voice.
Losing your voice.
Because now it's getting late. You know, I started doing radio, and like Sports Center hits and stuff at 5:30. And the game ended at 11:45.
Oh,
so, but it's easy to stay in the moment because it's really exciting. But when it's finished,
high energy,
poof, finish. Like you're just like, I got nothing to say. I'm tired. So it was a great night. I'm telling you, first night back at the Garden in 5 years for playoff hockey.
What a place.
If people haven't had the opportunity, I hope you get a chance to watch a game there. It's just electric in there. You're right in New York and there's so much going on. But conversely, there's so much going on outside the arena. You go to Raleigh and outside people are tailgating, they're having a barbecue. Everybody's really friendly, all the Caniacs. You go inside, absolute madhouse. You cannot hear yourself in there. It was, Carolina has really cultivated something there.
Yeah.
It was so fun to be in there. Boston had no fun, but I did.
No. Excellent. Headlines presented by our friends at Boston Pizza. Boston Pizza's got meal deals for everyone, you included. Pizza, pasta, wings, salad. Pick it up, get it delivered to your door. Either way, BP is going to make sure all of your great people are happy tonight. Scary moment, by the way, between the New York Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins, right? Jeff Carter collides with Igor Shesterkin. What was there, like 2 minutes left in the hockey game? It looked like Igor kind of got in Jeff Carter's way. And then we had another experience earlier in the week, of course, with David Pastrnak clipping Ante Ranta. He had to leave the game. So goalie contact rate is always a hot topic in the playoffs. It always is. And interference calls have been made here, right? So the officials aren't turning a blind eye to it. But what do you make of? So let's look at Carter and Shesterkin. Is that just a collision? Simple as that. Carter gets the 2-minute goalie interference. Or is that one of those, I've got an opportunity here. Shesterkin is way out of the blue paint. I'm not trying to run him or take him out, but I'm also not getting out of the way of them either.
Yeah, I think 2 things to look for anytime there's goalie contact like that. Watch the player's shoulder and watch his foot. Because if his shoulder starts to lean in, there's no reason for the shoulder to lean in.
Right.
And if the foot starts to spread, that means you're trying to make contact with his feet.
Okay.
Carter did neither.
Okay.
I think Shesterkin was kind of shielding him a little bit, and not a lot, but a little bit. And Carter's turning left to go behind the net. I think where it hurt, I mean, it looked bad, was that he landed right on his hip.
Yeah.
And so that it hurts. And so I do like that the officials get together right away. They're doing this better and more frequently than they have in the past. Same with the Pasternak play on Ranta. They called it a major. They conferred. They had a review, and they put it to 2. And that's the way it should have been. Bruce Cassidy was asked after the game, what was your thoughts on Pasternak running Ranta? He goes, "Oh, come on, it's David Pasternak." Like that's another thing. You've got to take into consideration, in his 500 games, has that ever been a thing? And the answer is no.
Yeah. It's not Nick Kypreos running Grant Fuhr back in the day, right?
No. The other thing, here's another strategy, though, from when you're running around the goalie or running near the goalie, is when you bump into him, if the guy falls, the skater, chances are he's acting.
Okay.
Because you fall to make it look like an accident. Unless you're going straight over top of him, which would be not a good play from your health perspective. But if you're going in there, like if a guy would shove me towards the goalie and I ran into him, I'd fall over all the time because I knew what was coming next. And so Carter didn't do any of those things. Pasternak didn't either. But it's important to watch because it gets more and more contentious around the crease all the time.
No question. So the Rangers even that series. But let's wrap it up. I mean, how good is Sidney Crosby?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, you've had a front row seat. I thought he was superb in the triple overtime game. And, not that Jake Guentzel isn't a good player. Jake Guentzel has turned into be a terrific NHL goal scorer, obviously. But there's just something about Sid and the playoffs, man, where we talk about this gear that players find.
Yeah.
He finds it and then some.
Well, okay, so I said something in game 1, and I got a bunch of heat from Penguins fans because they didn't hear it right.
Okay.
And so I copy and paste a DM message to a bunch of them. So because I wanted to clarify it because it bugged me. I said, I don't think Sidney Crosby gets as much credit for his skill anymore because we're just marveling at his work ethic, his determination, his, just the way that he just enforces his personality on the game. I think we forget that he's unbelievably talented. I don't think the general hockey public thinks of Sid as one of the most skilled players in the game because he's a freak of nature. When you watch him play, like I loved last night, the cameras caught him just barking at somebody and telling somebody to screw off. I love that because he's so intense. He's so intense. The goal he scored in game 2, that puck should have been taken off his stick 3 times. And he just refuses to give it up. 34 years old, like amazing player still.
Yeah. Boston looks to me, Ray, like they know that they're not going to be able to handle the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, they may win a game. They may win 2. I hope they do. I don't like sweeps. I want to be entertained. I want to see more hockey. Carolina, aside from the goaltending issues with poor health, they appear like they're ready to roll here. And are you seeing it the same way from Boston's perspective? Like they just feel like they're outmatched?
They're slow, the Bruins, compared to Carolina. Carolina's they're like in a race car the whole game. They're like Rod Brindamore. What you see, like when Brindamore's behind the bench and he talks really fast and he's got his arms going all the time and he's super intense. That's how Carolina is. The whole game is fast and aggressive. And I don't know that Boston has the people to push back with speed. Boston has to choke the life out of the game to be able to beat Carolina. The problem is Carolina can play that style. They give up the fewest goals in the league. Carolina does. Far different than the way Boston does, but because Boston's 4th. But Carolina just doesn't give them any opportunity. And
No,
they don't seem to
no.
have an answer. And now they don't have Hampus Lindholm. So Mike Riley will go in on defense. That's a,
What a hit that was, eh?
oh, man.
Ooh.
Now, that is, I mean, I could see it coming from my position. Like Lindholm got that kind of a slow reverse from Brandon Carlo. And just the way I'm looking from my position, I can see Svechnikov coming, and I can see that Lindholm doesn't see him. And Svechnikov's 215 pounds.
He's a big man.
His hit was textbook.
It was.
It really was.
Clean and mean. Clean and mean.
Unfortunately, that it's a bad result. But now Boston's, Marchand doesn't look as quick or as he got grumpy in game 2, but usually he's grumpy and he's got the puck all the time. And so unless Bergeron, who scored 2 goals, I just love Bergeron. I just love the way he plays. Unless they can find a way to control more of the play, I think they're in trouble. They're going to put Pasternak back. They used him in the second half of game 2 with Bergeron and Marchand. They'll get them back together, and they'll get away from Jordan Staal, which will be what they'll want to do. Will it be enough? I don't think so. I think Carolina's too good for them.
Florida turned it up a notch. I guess they knew that they needed to. They squandered the 2-1 lead going into the third in game 1. But no different than Tampa Bay Lightning in game 2. The big boys showed up for the Florida Panthers, right? And that's Barkov and that's Huberdeau. And Marchment was real good. Aaron Ekblad, he's knocking off some rust, but he gets a goal. So that's more of what I thought we'd see from the Florida Panthers against the Caps in this series.
If I were Florida, you know what I'd be most happy about? Sergei Bobrovsky's been really good for 2 games because I'm not worried about the team. Right. I'm not worried about the skaters. I'm more worried about the goaltender if I'm Florida. And Bobrovsky was excellent in both games. So, Washington checked that game into a standstill. I turned away at the end of the period because the Ranger game was starting. And I look at my phone, it's 2-0. I'm like, what did I miss? It was 0-0 and nothing was going on. And so they had 3 goals on 7 shots. I think they need this, Florida. They need to grind their way through some games here. Because if they can find the grind, they have the skill, clearly. And I think they do. I think they're too good for Washington. Certainly, Wash goes in and gets the split. No Tom Wilson in game 2. Big loss for Washington. We'll see how he is for game 3.
Yeah. Maple Leafs, as we're recording, this is going into game 3 of the series. So it looks like lineup adjustments there, right? Spezza will probably draw back in. That's the plan. Simmons is out, according to the morning skate. Looks like Kyle Clifford will have an extended seat beyond the suspension that he served. How much of that is just purely discipline related? Maybe not hockey related, but discipline related. Like Simmons took 2 bad penalties that led to Tampa Bay goals.
Well, I get a couple of thoughts on this. One is Sheldon Keefe said their 4th line has been better when Kyle Clifford's in the game. He just said that last week, and now he's not in the game. So I'm a little confused about that.
Yeah.
2 is before the series, Keefe mentioned, I think it's going to be borderline violent this series. Here's the problem with that statement. I know that statement wasn't for his players. That statement was for the officials. But when your toughness is questioned, you come out swinging. So we won the division in Hartford, and I have, I think, direct experience with this. We won the division in Hartford in 1987, first time ever. We had made the playoffs the year before, no expectations. We won the first round. We lost 7th game in Montreal in the second round. Next year, we win the division. Well, Quebec makes a big thing about they don't think we're very tough. And I'll tell you, we showed them. We took 5,000 penalties, and they beat us in 6 games. But it was like, I remember going, screw you guys, not tough enough. I don't even know how many penalty minutes I took in that series, but I know I took some. And I took retaliation penalties. I was not going to be told I wasn't tough enough. And like I said, we showed them, and their power play killed us. Toronto's question is, can they stand up to playoff hockey? Well, in the first 2 games, they stood up to it, and they took 1,000 penalties.
Yeah.
They have to forget that stuff. Their toughness is controlling the puck, is winning a puck battle, is getting a power play, scoring on the power play, being firm in front of their net. Any of those scrums, what are you going to punch back and forth with Corey Perry and Pat Maroon for? It's useless.
Exactly.
You're not going to make them go away. Those guys, they're just loving it. Skate away.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's impossible when you're on the ice, when somebody punches you in the face or calls you a wimp or whatever they're calling you, it's impossible to skate away easily.
Yeah.
But just skate away. That's where Toronto can help themselves the most.
I'm glad you mentioned Corey Perry. Just a quick shout out, because O-Dog and I and Pooley were talking about this on set. You know, for as long as Corey Perry wants to play, Julian Breezeball, the general manager of the Lightning, should say, there's $1 million. Just let me know when you don't want to play anymore, and we'll make that. And I know that sounds ridiculous in a hard cap era in the National Hockey League, but 20 goals, and man, he's just designed for this time of year, right? Like, he's just a pest, but as we saw in the 2-0 goal the other night, he still has skills.
Well, he doesn't have to play a lot to be effective. Yeah. And what Tampa's done with their older guys that basically make up that fourth line, they all can play 12 minutes. Their ego is gone. They want to win. Pat Maroon's won 3 times in a row. 3 cups in a row. Do you think he cares if he plays 15 minutes or 12 minutes? No, he just wants to win.
Yeah.
Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, he didn't make the league till he was 29. He just wants to play. And Perry's been a rat and a rotten guy to play against for 18 years. It's not going to change. John Cooper told me he didn't know what a social guy Perry was and how important he would be to the team. He's like, he gets on the plane, he walks around, he's in one card game, but he doesn't play. He's just chirping guys, and he goes and talks to somebody else. Then he's up at the front, then he's up at the back. And I'm like, he's like, it was way better than he thought or understood it would be. And then he scores 20 goals too. So
yeah.
By the end of the series, every Toronto fan will hate the guy. Most players will hate him, and Tampa will, win or lose, Tampa will say, Perry did his job.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap up headlines with a thought on Cale Makar. Surprise to no one, gets the OT winner for the Colorado Avalanche in Game 2 over the Preds. 12 shots Cale Makar registered in that game, which is the most ever for an Avs player in a playoff game, ever, which is saying a lot because historically Colorado's had some pretty good teams. I mean, from Cale Makar to what, a dagger in the heart of the Nashville Predators as they go back to Nashville?
Well, okay, so 22 shot attempts. 22. Like, were there 2 pucks on the ice and he played with one and everyone else played with another? When he makes that little move, when he goes to his right and stops and goes left, there's no way the forward that's trying to block the shot can stay in front of him. There's just no way. The guy is magic. Magic. And so, I mean, for Nashville, man, those guys, they should be proud. They're overmatched in that series. They're not going to win. Yeah. They played their butts off yesterday. And a little shout out to Connor Ingram, who was marvelous again. Now, I don't know if you remember him from the World Junior team. His mom's so nervous, she can't watch the games. So she came to the game and walked around the concourse when he was playing.
That's awesome.
She didn't walk in the rink. She's walking around the concourse. And so I don't know. And he's gone through some issues. He had some, it was documented, had an OCD issue, went away to the player support system for 40 days last year.
Quite a story.
Yeah, good for Connor Ingram. He played terrific both games in a row, and they'll go back to Nashville, and it'll be a great atmosphere and stuff. But they're just not going to be good enough.
Those are the headlines. Thank you to Boston Pizza. Our interviews on Ray and Dregs are brought to you by our friends at Canadian Club Whiskey, who are asking, "Are you over beer? Why not try the refreshing CC Ginger Ale with lime next time you're having a drink, you're watching a game? There's lots of games to watch. And Ray, how about this? The CC and Ginger Ale mixed and ready in a can is now available basically across Canada. So for you and I, man, it just makes it so easy to crack one open.
Yeah, see, you have the pride of making your own. I have the instant gratification.
All right, there he is, the head coach of the Anaheim Ducks. Dallas Eakins joining us on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. And I was going to ask you about, are you away from the rink? Are you kind of moving on to the off season here? But clearly, for those who are watching us on YouTube, no, you're still inside the video offices. So you're trying to take apart the season that was, and then plan for all of the off season stuff that your players have to go through.
Yeah, number one, thanks for having me. I always appreciate it. Yeah, it's as much as it's a time to reintroduce yourself to your family again. My routine's changed a little bit. Like, I'm able to drop the girls off at school, which is awesome. Pick them up from school, which is awesome. But I still find myself at the rink. Like, there's always something to do, whether going through parts of the season, things we liked, things we didn't, or even starting to organize stuff for training camp. The other thing we're doing is looking at free agents, guys that might be available, kind of watching them closely. And with the technology today, it's awesome. Like, you can literally just pull up the guys' shifts. And always working, always trying to get better, and trying to spend time with family.
Dallas, you also got another caveat to all this, and that's a new boss in Pat Verbeek. How does that go where you got to get to know Pat, then you've got to try to plan to build to what you think to what he thinks, and how does that all come together?
Well, it's coming together, and the great thing I think for our organization right now is, like, that's our third GM this year, and there's been lots of turbulence here. I personally see calm waters ahead. Pat's come in, been super up front. He's super organized, and he comes in kind of alone, and I think that's a really tough spot. And I think he's done a really good job coming in, getting to know the staff. And now is when we start sitting down and talking about players for the future, what we have in the organization. I personally really like what his plan is. Obviously, I'm going to help as much as I can. But over the next few months here, kind of leading through these playoffs, then we've got the draft, and then obviously free agency. They're going to be very, very important months for our organization.
When the plan is very clear at the beginning, so he says, Pat Verbeek, the new general manager, says we're either going to sign these unrestricted free agents or we're going to have to move them. When they move them, clearly your team changes in an instant, right? Because they're significant people as well in your team. How do you start right away looking forward, or are you like, you're still in the moment. You still got 20 whatever games were left to coach with them. How do you balance the two? Because everybody can see where the train is headed.
Yeah, like, hey, I'm going to be honest. That hurts. Like, you're in this. We've rallied our group to basically win today. That was kind of our mantra this year, to come in and get better every day, just win the day. Our guys were doing an excellent job of it. But, when Pat came in, he had to do what he had to do. I think it was necessary. And sometimes necessary things hurt. I think it's going to bode very, very well for the organization for the future. But we didn't miss a beat. As the new guys came in, obviously our record wasn't the same as before the deadline. But we kept on. We just tried to keep winning. And the one thing I really credit our players for is, they could have mailed it in there could have been a huge drop off in effort and care. And that didn't happen. There were nights, obviously, we lost games, but I never, ever questioned our group's effort. And I think, for the most part, our players understood. Like, they understand the game. They understand what's going on with free agents. That doesn't discount that it hurts, because we're competitive people, and you're driven to win. But what we did at the deadline, like I said, was necessary, and it's going to be a big part of us moving forward.
A lot of your recent career, right before you were hired by the Ducks, you were in the American League for a pretty good stretch in San Diego. So you got a bunch of young kids. You're trying to promote them, trying to build them, trying to grow them. You come to Anaheim and you've got, a number of them in particular that stand out. Like Troy Terry had a fabulous year, and Trevor Zegras. How does that work? Like how much can you hold a guy accountable while he's trying to learn the league too? Because I assume there's some kind of balance to it.
Yeah, there is. And the one thing that I think we really learned quickly, and this was, part of the plan with me coming in was, we were going to try to develop players, that first year that I was here, and develop them in the league. The one thing that we found out very quickly, that is, this is not a development league.
No.
It's not. It can be really cruel to young players. And if you just keep giving them ice time and you keep giving them things, they become accustomed to gifts. And there has to be a accountability along the way. So that kind of mindset really changed through the second year. There were some growing pains there, and we really held fast to it hard this year. And it's really simple. It's the players, number one for me. They're never going to care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've been with a certain number of these guys leading into this job, there's great relationships there. And even with our current guys, our vets, I'm really proud of the relationships we have there. So when it gets to accountability time, whether it's a pulling of, hey, you miss your rotation on a shift, or you're pulled off the power play, or, you're parked to the bench for a while, or there's an extra meeting with the coaches or the coach, whatever that's going to be. The one thing I firmly believe is all of our players, they understand the accountability. They know it's necessary, and they know it's coming from the place that we're trying to make them individually better. Because if we make all the individuals better, we will be collectively better. So there's a real good understanding of that with our guys. And with accountability, hey, there's days that they're not real happy campers with the accountability. But they do learn to understand it.
Look, you'll have a huge hole in your lineup moving forward. The Anaheim Ducks recently celebrated the wonderful career of Ryan Getzlaf. I know how important Ryan Getzlaf is to you on the ice, but just as importantly, off the ice. So how tough was that? Just to see a man that's given so much to this organization call it a career.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to try not to tear up because I love that kid so much. It's unbelievable. I love him like a son. And it was both, Dregs. It was incredible to be there as the coach, watching this young man transition out of an unbelievable career and into something new and different. And it was incredibly sad that we were going to not have him in our dressing room because, he's a selfless soul. He has just an amazing effect on not only the players, our support staff, our coaches. Not only has he made all the players better, including I attribute a lot of Troy Terry's success this year. Troy put in the work, but Ryan had a massive influence on him. But he's made all of our players better. He's made our staff better. He's made our coaches better, and he's certainly made me a better coach. And whatever Ryan does next, he will be excellent at it.
How can you take the legacy that he left behind, because it's quite different than most people when they leave an organization. His stamp was everywhere. How can you take that and move it forward to continue it with the group you have now, so it's just not gone in the wind?
Yeah, I think it's really important to reference that moving forward. It's not like, for me, I don't love the whole, okay, well, you're not here anymore, we're not going to talk about you. Where we're going to put a picture of you up in the hallway, and hopefully someone will stop and have a look at it every once in a while. And like Ryan carried a really big stick here in a very positive way. And I think it's really important moving forward, especially as the coach, to reference his habits that he had, and to reference how he went about his business. And it started right away. Like, he played his last game at home, and then we went and played 2 games on the road. And we didn't bring him on the trip. His seat on the plane was empty, which was super sad to see that thing empty. But it was amazing when we got into games, or something came up, I went right away and referenced him. And I think we will, it won't be an everyday thing moving forward, but every player in this room will have either played with him, or they will still know exactly who he is next year, of the new guys that we bring in. And there's a lot of attributes, a lot of ways that Ryan carried himself that we certainly want to move forward. And in the same breath, we want our leadership now to step out and move forward. I'm already getting the questions like, well, who's the next captain? And I'm like, well, can we just let our last captain settle? Our new captain will emerge when he emerges. We're not going to be any rush for that. And nor will we slow roll it if somebody does present themselves.
Of your young players, I got to tell you, I am thoroughly entertained by Trevor Zegras and just about everything that he does. The way he plays, the way he dresses, the way he talks. I don't know, like, if you can be as entertained as the coach, or like, I just watch him and I'm like, this is the kid that the game needs to market. Jack Hughes is another. How do you view that new creative, open kid that's now coming into the league? Like, how do you deal? We're older, you're younger than me, but you're older than he is. And he deals with things I don't know. I think he's really competitive. I think he's really creative. I love watching him play.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Z, like these young players are incredible. And like, I really embrace it. I love what they can do, and what they do in games is it's just mind-boggling. What's even more mind-boggling is what that kid can do in practice. It is. I've seen him do some stuff in practice where I'm like, did I just see that? And you're right. This kid is immensely misread by a lot of people. This whole thing that he's cocky and he's arrogant is 100% false. This kid is as caring as they come. You're right. He is highly competitive. And the one thing we're trying to work on with him is to settle a little bit in the games. He truly believes that every time that he steps on the ice, he wants something big to happen in a positive way for our team. And you guys know how it is. Sometimes you go out for a shift and nothing happens. It's just, and you've got to understand that. But the amount of skill these guys have, and they do these things naturally. Like, I know Z inside out. And like, when you see him pick up that puck on his stick behind the net, or you see him put his stick between the legs, like, he's not thinking about it. It just comes naturally to him. And I know some people take great offense to him skilling it up, but he's just trying to score goals for his team, try to have a positive impact on the team. And he is far from an arrogant kid. He's a team-first, competitive kid that we are never, ever going to squeeze the life out of him.
Well, we're looking forward to watching him and the Anaheim Ducks again next season, Dallas. How much hockey will you watch? Or next to none? I mean, you'll get your business done with the Ducks, get into the offseason, recharge, and maybe hit the bike and get ready for next season.
Yeah, it's well, we'll watch as much as we can, and as the staff was going out the door here, like instead of having those guys hang around here and start reviewing everything and what we want to change, I thought it was really. I go, let's guys go glue yourselves to the TVs. Let's watch these games. Let's think about what we think will look like next year and how we can play. And if there's anything from these other teams that they're doing that we might want to take on before we go and fully evaluate our own. So, I'm like you guys, I'm flipping from game to game every night as much as I can. Um, I keep a real close eye on Calgary there with my relationship with Darryl. He's had an immense effect on me personally and on my career. Probably one of the best hires I've ever made, and so I'm always watching him. His pressers are second to none, and we'll work in some bike rides and family time around it. But the game never ends now, and I think it's a good thing. I think it keeps us all out of trouble.
No kidding. Well, Dallas, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Alice.
Yeah, anytime.
And we'd like to raise a glass of 44-year-old beautiful CC to Dallas Eakins for joining us today, the head coach of the Anaheim Ducks. Presented by Canadian Club Whiskey, the 44-year-old release is available everywhere. Now, we've got some Penguins news we'll get to in just a moment, Ray. But just to wrap up with Dallas here, man, I listen to Dallas talk. He's really good friends with Paul Maurice, right? The skill that those two men possess to communicate, the passion. I mean, you could talk endlessly with Dallas, right? Not just the stories, but just, how thoughtful he is and talking about his players and the direction of the team and, how emotionally he got, reflecting on Ryan Getzlaf, who recently retired.
Yeah, what I took in there was that the game, we have a million examples, but how far it's changed about the way coaches and players interact, about building a relationship is more important than anything else. And, he's had that line, they don't care what you know until they know you care.
Mm-hmm.
And man, when I played, they didn't give the coaches didn't give a rat's rear end about us because on a personal level, they just wanted us to play well. And the way that you coach then was to push and to shove and to, hey, you're not getting on the ice again. That's not the way now. And it's a way better way, I guess, is the ineloquently stated. But when Dallas talks about that, I can see what his focus is and where he heads down the coaching road. And that's the way it has to be.
And thanks again to Dallas. Look, as we're recording this Friday morning, episode 32, earlier in headlines, we talked about the Penguins and the New York Rangers series. Well, it's now pretty clear that the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to have to move forward with Louis Domingue as their goaltender because Casey DeSmith, according to news earlier today, he's done. He's out. Yep. He's had a procedure and he's done for the
core
year.
Muscle surgery. Man, you got a feel for Casey DeSmith. He, he's waited a long time. Had a really tough year and then a great finish, and now gets a chance to play. And when he went down the hallway after he took himself out of the game in the double overtime in game one, like he was firing his blocker down the hallway. Yeah. Like he knew something was not good. And I feel badly for him. I hope he heals well and gets at it quick.
It is episode 32 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. We've got Chris Abbott from coolbet.co stopping by for another weekly visit. And a lot of hockey talk here in this segment this week, Chris. You were perhaps one of the smart ones to bet on Tampa Bay prior to the opening round series against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Seemed like a good idea until the Maple Leafs won game one, and then you doubled down for game two. So explain yourself.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get a team like Tampa Bay, obviously we all know the history coming into that series for both teams, right? And the Leafs were a slight favorite. Basically, due to the home ice advantage. The odds basically said that, the slight advantage is due to the fact that they have an extra home game. So me, the history of the Leafs and the 20 long year saga we're on right now, that's one reason that, to me, you just got to take Tampa at a price that good. And then for the simple fact that you were getting a little bit extra, and all you need is the road team to get a split, and then they're the home team, and you've got a pretty good price. So yes, I was a little bit of a pariah here locally, going against the grain, but it certainly worked out so far. After they lost game one, I said, I still like my bet here, and then that changes the odds again. I think it was like plus 140 or so, after they were about even money before the series started. So now I'm sitting with a couple of tickets for the Lightning, who are the series favorite, and they're the home team in a best 3 out of 5. So we'll see what happens, but really, really good spot to grab a team that's either a favorite or a pick 'em coming into the series after they lose game one. Did the same thing with the Rangers after they lost game one, got them at a really good price for the series. A little bit different now, Pittsburgh's the home team, but still got a pretty good price on the Rangers and potentially a Penguins team that's got some goaltending
Well, I
issues.
was just going to ask that, Chris. So I'm doing that marathon on whatever day it was, game one, Monday, I guess. And so DeSmith goes down, but he's the backup. And then Domingue has to come in. They call up a guy from the minors who's got like an 857 save percentage in the American League. Like, I think Evgeny Malkin's going in goal before this guy, if he has to. Like, how do the odds change given those goaltending issues are real and significant?
Yeah, I mean, New York's a very, very heavy favorite in that series. Now, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's a lot different than it was when it started, and certainly when I got them down a game after game one, even in the game, right? So Domingue comes in, who, by the way, to have a third goalie that's Louis Domingue is something that a lot of teams don't have. So good on the
Well,
Pens
you know
for
what? Here,
that.
let me just jump in really quickly. There are some teams that don't have a third goalie on their roster at this point, which is just astounding to me that a goalie could get hurt and you got to use an EBUG in it.
Like, it's nuts.
It's crazy. Like, how could that even be? So Domingue comes in, you have a capable NHL goaltender.
Very. Yeah. So, I mean, but not your number one, not
Right.
your number two, right? So that's also the reality of it. But yes, absolutely, a guy who's played it and had success at the level. But yeah, of course, then at the other end of the ice, you've got, arguably the best goalie in the league right now, certainly one of the best ones this season, and that changed significantly. But in the game, when he comes in, then the odds are going to shift. So anyone who jumped on the Penguins after the injury, we're definitely happy with what happened. But then conversely, you've got a game, the next night where Colorado dominates and it goes into overtime, and you can get in a one-shot game, you could get Nashville for like plus 170, which wouldn't have been a good bet in hindsight, but the value on that in anything can happen in overtime. So yeah, live betting,
Well, Chris,
either the
that's a great
series
point.
or the game.
That's a great point, because right before Makar had his 97th shot of the night last night in overtime, Kemper made an unbelievable save. Like, Nashville had, I think they only had the puck twice, but they had one great chance, and that to your point, that could have been your plus 170.
Oh, absolutely. Very easily. Listen, you guys have done plenty of international hockey in your day, and you know that in a tight game, it only takes one shot from those teams that are completely overplayed. So, so really good opportunities for live betting. Like I was saying, series, game, what have you. It's been a whole lot of fun, and we're just getting started. Even though, Ray, I know you worked. I hope you got paid for 2 games in game one.
I tried to invoice that, and it's funny. It got one of those crazy noises on your computer, bing bong bing. No, you can't do that. 4 games
Stuck
in 3
in
days,
accounting
as it turned
somewhere.
out. It was 3 games in 3 days. Turned out to be 4. It was awesome.
Can you bet on sweeps at this point, Chris? Like, are people putting money on Colorado now and potentially on the Hurricanes?
Well, you know what? You wouldn't get much on Colorado to sweep right now. I don't know if it's up, but you can certainly bet a series spread as well, which is another thing. So when you look at take Tampa or take New York, because I use those examples already, for them to win by -1.5 games coming into the series would have been about the same price you got for them just to win the series after game one. So sometimes waiting in those scenarios is really good. Obviously, in the Carolina situation, you would have got a really good price on them to sweep. You'd still get a decent price. I mean, you never want to count the Boston Bruins out, but the Hurricanes sitting pretty, and to bet series prices that on the team that's up 2-0, that's about the only place you would maybe win a little bit of money is betting on the sweep, and I'm sure some people will.
Good stuff as always. Chris Abbott from coolbet.co joining us. Good luck with your Tampa Bay Lightning and New York Rangers.
Hey man, let's see what happens, but it's been pretty exciting so far, and got a little bit of skin in the game never hurts.
Oh yeah, you betcha. Good luck to you.
Cheers, boys.
Oh, the always entertaining Ask Ryan Dregs Anything on the Ryan Dregs Hockey Podcast. If you're new, you can fire your questions to us on Twitter and Instagram at Ryan Dregs, or on the website, RyanDregs.com. Ask Ryan Dregs Anything, presented by Doer, the world's most comfortable pants and shorts. I just received a shipment, by the way. This t-shirt is a nice Doer t-shirt, Ray.
Nice.
I know if you're listening, you can't
soft,
see it.
I bet. I know they are because I have the jeans, and the jeans are like butter. So the shirt must be. How come you got a package?
And the shorts are off the charts. Yeah, you're getting one too. Come on. It's not all about me. Sometimes it is.
Yeah, sometimes it's always about us.
Remember, use code RND and you're going to save 15% off all pants at doer.ca. All right. At Seth Monkhouse. I guess this would be Instagram. It is. Do you think that Jared Spurgeon should have been suspended, right? Or was the punishment harsh enough?
No, I think he should have been suspended. There's no other way to look at that play than he was trying to hurt him. Yeah. Not that he's trying to break his leg, but he's trying to hurt him.
He targeted the ankle,
yeah.
right?
So I think he should have got a game.
It was nasty.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
If people don't understand how intense the playoffs are, I have never seen Jared Spurgeon like that. Never.
No, and he's not that like that. He's
I don't know. Like it was just like
candidate.
Those. There's so much in the first game of a series. Everybody's, especially that when they're talking about this is going to be crazy and so physical, and then he does that. Like, what's he thinking? The answer's not much, and he got lucky that he got a fine, not a suspension.
Yeah. All right, to Twitter from James Malden at Rempel2Malden. Which team do you think should make a move for Mark Scheifele? Any team that needs a pretty good center?
Yeah, I mean, lots of teams. A couple of things that if you acquire Scheifele, you're getting a pretty good contract. Although he doesn't love his own contract, 2 minutes after he signed it, he didn't like it. But the way it goes, too bad. But you're getting a player that would be motivated, a player that would be that is a very good player. Who could use him? I mean, I don't know. What if Patrice Bergeron retires in Boston? Oh, then I would say the Bruins.
Oof.
Right? Yeah. Like that would jump up right away at me. If you're Philadelphia, they got all kinds of problems. There's not a player out there they shouldn't be interested in. And so I would say them. What about San Jose? They're rebuilding. What about Detroit? Like there'll be no shortage of teams that would be interested.
Philadelphia, as you say, that makes a lot of sense because the package that needs to come back to Winnipeg for Mark Scheifele, I mean, you're all either getting a developing center or a real good young forward back, or you're getting a real good young defenseman, right? That has to be part of that package. Is it Sanheim? Is it Provorov? I mean, either one of those guys would be nice adds.
Well, and Provorov's coming off a year that didn't go so well. So maybe they might look at him in a way that they say, you know what? And so for my thought, you're not trading for futures. You're trading for somebody in the same age range as Scheifele. And somebody that's got a contract that's got some term left on it, just like Scheifele's does.
Yeah. How about this one? Our good friend Brian Mudryk.
Oh, what does he know? He's out bopping around Barcelona right now.
He's relentless. He sends us a note on Instagram. At Muddy lives here. It's Brian Mudryk from TSN. Does Dregs miss being a heartthrob at A Channel in Edmonton?
What year were you at A Channel?
97. I was there 1 year, 1997, 98. I left to come to Toronto in 98.
Oh, did you break hearts when you left?
No, I don't think so. But, that was back in the era of the clothing deals. I mean, we have them now, obviously, with our suits and our shirts and our ties and all that. But A Channel was this hip new startup station, right? So, we got in trouble from Glenn Sather. So, Bruce Buchanan, remember Bucky, the play-by-play guy? Harry Neal was one of the many color commentators. We had the rights for the Oilers that year. And we thought we're going to be hip, no ties. We're going to wear the mock turtlenecks and sport coats. First game, right after the game, Glenn Sather, the middle of the dressing room, all the players are there, Oilers players. He yells across, "Hey, Dreger, this is the effing NHL. We wear ties in the NHL." I'm like,
you couldn't have felt smaller.
Oh my God. And my good buddy Kelly Buchberger and Doug Waite and all those guys are killing themselves laughing, right? Because I just got dressed down.
So I don't know if you remember, Dregs, way back in the day, ESPN2 was just getting started. So it was going to be the young hip network, kind of like your A Channel. It was going to make things roll along. So the first night they go out there and Keith Olbermann is the host and he's wearing a leather jacket, which he does not want to be wearing. So he says, the first line that he says on ESPN2, "Welcome to the end of my career." They were so sour at him.
How bad.
But he's like, "I look ridiculous. Look at me." It was so good.
Did he wear the leather jacket a second time?
Yeah, I think that started the love-hate between Keith and ESPN for, decades.
Yeah, I'll bet. Speaking of clothing, so you flipped me a picture recently, and it was torn. I mean, you've had some suit follies, I would say, over the last few weeks. I mean, wearing the suit jacket with the pants that don't match and having to go back and all that. But the picture you sent, you blew the crotch, the back end, out of your suit pants. How'd you do it?
Okay, so the NHL came up with this thing for safety that 18 inches from, or 2 feet from the boards in between the benches, there's another board. So you can't get to the players' boards. They don't want you hanging over, which I don't know why you'd want to be hanging over anyway. You don't have a helmet or any gear on. But anyway, so that board is 2 feet from the game boards. So it's the end of the first period. I'm in Toronto. It's the last day of the regular season. I'm exhausted. I just flew in on the red eye. And so I'm not really thinking. Anyway, get through the period. So I've got to step over the first board to get my leg over the game boards to drag myself out to get out of there between periods. Well, I've still got my headset on. I forgot to take it off because I'm half asleep. So my headset pulls me back as I'm halfway over the boards. So it pulls me back, and now I gotta right myself. So I lean back the other way, and all of a sudden I feel the ass of my pants rip. And I'm like, uh-oh, that's a problem. So now I get my left leg up tight because I don't know how bad it is, right? So I go to the locker room. I'm like, well, maybe I can get this thing fixed. And so I go into the bathroom. I take off my pants. It will be on our Twitter account. It will be on our Instagram. They are shredded. So I'm like, I got to go back out there 2 more periods. So all I could think of was getting some duct tape from the Leaf trainers, and I duct taped the inside of my pants. So at least it looked like it was dark, so nobody could see anything. And I'm like, what a loser. Like they're irretrievable. But first of all, I had the headset on. I just about fell into the bench. Then I almost fell out of the bench. Either way would have been awful. And then I have no pants. So what are you going to do?
I mean, a small price to pay.
For what?
To tell the story.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, fantastic. I agree. 100%.
At least you had pants on, which is different.
This is true.
Of course, the famous hotel story.
Yeah,
So
just-
you're moving in the right direction with
You're
these
right,
issues.
you're right.
That's outstanding. Remember, check out Ray and Dregs social channels for a rapid fire presented by Kintec Footwear and Orthotics, keeping you active on your feet for life. A little bit later this week, we'll have another rapid fire on the way. You're home briefly.
Yep.
So last week I asked about what your week looks like, and I'm pretty sure this next week is going to look very similar to this past week.
Sunday, Mother's Day, I'm going to fly to Pittsburgh for Game 4 of the Rangers Pittsburgh. If there's a Game 5, Boston and Carolina, I'll be at that game, and then I'll be back at Game 6 for the Rangers in Pittsburgh. So everything becomes up in the air, as you know, at this time. And so that's what the week looks like. I do want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. Hope for those that their moms are still with you, I hope you enjoy it. If not, spend some time and think about your mom and what she might have done for you growing up, and to your wife and those that look after the kids and do such a great job. Happy Mother's Day to all.
Yeah, enjoy a great weekend. And a huge shout out, Ray, to our partners who make the podcast possible, our title sponsors and our good friends at Canadian Club Whiskey, who ask, are you over beer? Coolbet.co, it's the free-to-play sports and casino games website. By Kintec Footwear and Orthotics, you can book a consultation at kintec.net. Boston Pizza, pick it up or get it delivered to your door. Let Boston Pizza do the cooking tonight. And by Doer, use code RND and you will save 15% off pants at doer.ca. That is Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Look forward next week to episode 33 with Ray Ferraro, parts unknown, somewhere on the road.
See you later.